Hello and welcome to Uffsides NFL podcast. I'm Matt Ufford here at the SB Nation studios. With me is New York Times journalist and author Joe Drape. Welcome, Joe.
Matt, great to be here.
You have written 17 books?
I wish. About 7 of them.
7 books.
Maybe 10 bad ones and never made it.
Your most recent book is Soldiers First, a season that you were embedded with the Army football team. We're going to get to that later. Your beat at the New York Times, where you've been for 15 years, correct?
Been there for 15, Matt.
Wow. You've been there for 15 years, and your beat there is mostly horse racing.
Horses and investigation, and, horses is not a full-time job.
So give me, since we're going to have to talk about the NFL, even though the season's over, what are your NFL bona fides?
Well, I'm a long-suffering Kansas City Chief fan who was at the longest game.
Really?
With Ed Podolak and Garo Yepremian, and they were playing, of course.
I feel like all Chiefs games are the longest game these days, if you're cheering for them.
Yes, and I've been a fantasy football player for 25 years. The AJC, it began when I was in Atlanta, and we've had a league. We're the Hannibal Gamblers.
Wow, so back when it was all like on paper. And calculators.
Yeah, no computers. We had to have the list come out at the end of the week.
I admire that so much.
Yeah, it was fun.
Well, we'd like to kick off the show with what I call the worst of the worst. Right now, that is the month of February, because it's the NFL offseason. And
terrible.
I say it's so much. At least the Super Bowl now actually goes into February, so you have 3 to 4 days of NFL excitement, and then it all ends. So, what's your least favorite thing about February? Mine is Valentine's Day. But
mine is baseball. It's un-American to say, but I do not look forward to pitchers and catchers reporting. It's all anybody's talking about.
You just made a friend for life, sir.
And then, then we're going to just get hammered with it from March on through to September and October.
People get excited about athletes playing catch. And it's just like, you know what? Like, spring training goes on for a month. Let us football fans have a week. Just give us a week to enjoy this, like the last game of the season, before saying 8 days of pitchers and catchers. Like,
well, and then, you're waiting for March Madness to come. Yeah. So those are dead days. In the horse business, I like the Triple Crown. I'm starting looking for my Kentucky Derby winner right now. So
that's May?
First Saturday in May, my friend.
Yeah.
Every year.
Man, I was stationed at Fort Knox during that time, and I skipped the Kentucky Derby in order to drive home to my mom's college graduation. And I don't think she ever appreciates how much that I gave up in order to see her walk.
You're a good son, because I always say there's 5 events that, regardless of your interest in, that transcend sports. The Derby's one of them. The Indy 500, and I could care less about car racing. Is another. Sure. The Masters. I'm not a big golf guy, but that's bigger. You need to see an Olympics, and you need to see an Army-Navy game, which you have seen.
Yes, I have. Also, since you covered an Olympics in 1996, you were in Atlanta at the time.
Yep.
All right. Well, so yes, let's talk about some bright spots post Super Bowl. We'll talk about the Westminster Dog Show later. What about the NFL Combine? Is that something that you can force yourself to care about as an NFL fan?
Not at all. I don't care how fast they run the 40. I don't care how many push-ups and sit-ups or clean jerks they could do, and we never get the results for the Wonderlic test, so we don't know if anybody's smarter.
Yeah, they get leaked out, and it's just, man, it's a huge amount of pseudoscience that can help people, but man, is it not exciting to watch. All right, well, let's talk about some NFL headlines. The Eagles signed Michael Vick to a 1-year contract. Chip Kelly said that he's going to compete with Nick Foles for the job. How do you see the Eagles doing next year?
The Eagles are waiting, like a lot of teams are, for their real quarterback. The structure of that deal was very clear. This is a stopgap. This is a hold. It's for a year. Chip Kelly runs a different kind of offense. I don't know if he's going to be able to right off the bat there, but he's going to try. And Vic's not the worst solution out there. I mean, we talked earlier, and we'll talk a little more about this, what is out there for quarterbacks, and it's a pretty lean bunch. And, you play the cards that were dealt to you, and that's a better card than my Kansas City Chiefs have, or that a lot of teams have.
Yeah, I think that it's so sad that there's, at any given time, I've said this before, at any given time there's 15 to 20 capable NFL quarterbacks, and there's like a third of the league is just got this guy that half the fans hate and just want a franchise quarterback.
No, and you look at the great quarterbacks and just look at these last two. Where do they come from? I mean, it's a really art to unearth a quarterback. I mean, Delaware and Nevada, that was this past Super Bowl. Phil Simms was from Morehead State. Tom Brady, I actually covered. That was my first years at the Times, and he was the backup to Drew Henson, the third baseman for the Yankees. And then, I'd go talk to Tom Brady, and he would play maybe a half. So, these guys go out, look, find, and project. And if he's signing Vic to 1 year now, he sees nothing down the road. And I kind of admire the way quarterbacks are found, not really made.
Yeah, it is amazing. I'm a Seahawks fan myself, and Russell Wilson has been an amazing find. I've never actually cheered for a Seahawks team that had a true franchise quarterback. Matt Hasselbeck was good, but and even made a Pro Bowl or two, but was never going to be the guy who was going to have an all Hall of Fame career.
Well, and what I like about Russell Wilson, and I do like him a great deal. He is more Flacco than he is Kaepernick, and I always screw that name up. And, I know it's fun and it's entertaining to watch these RGs play, to watch these Wildcat quarterbacks play. But the fact is, they get pounded on, and they're only going to last 4, 6, 7 years. I'd rather have a drop back guy.
That's one thing that, and as I pick up a fantasy, I cover a fair amount of fantasy football, and I just avoid the guys like Michael Vick and RG3, and it's like they're going to be great for a season or two, right. And I'm always worried, like if you're only going to give me, if I'm going to draft you in the second round, say I want more than 12 games out of you.
Oh, absolutely. And you look at the great rushers and the quarterbacks of rushers who did the yardage over the years. They ran because they had to, man. I mean, Fran Tarkenton didn't really want to run that much, but he had to scramble. He had to get out of the way. That's a lot different than going off tackle or coming across the middle.
Sure.
And, in this day and age, the game is so, I guess, outsized and fast and brutal that, I never would cross midfield in an NFL. I don't care how good a shape you're in. I just think that's a lethal, dangerous thing to do.
Let's talk about this past year. I want to talk about the best teams in the NFL. Who do you think? Of course, the Ravens won the Super Bowl. Who was actually the best team in the NFL?
Yeah, I liked the Ravens all year. I mean, I thought they had all the parts going very well. I like Flacco. I think Ray Rice was a guy who grounded them in the right way, who made them dangerous, made Flacco more dangerous. The Patriots are always going to be good. They're well coached. They've got weapons that they move in and out of. They always know how to reload a little bit. San Francisco, they surprised me all year. They're a tough-minded team. I didn't think they were all that talented. Frank Gore is kind of a great fantasy player in a very quiet sort of way.
He's quietly excellent.
Yeah. It is, and I guess he gets his due. But I didn't think anybody fell short or should have been there. What about you?
I thought that the two most complete teams in the NFL this year were the Seahawks and the 49ers. I was disappointed that I didn't get to see them in the NFC Championship together. The more I look at the Ravens as NFL champions, I think that I was impressed the way they got past some holes on defense, losing Ladarius Webb for the season, Terrell Suggs for a big chunk of the season. Surviving despite Ray Lewis playing middle linebacker for him, I think that he was more of a liability than an asset. I think that Anquan Bolden is maybe the most underrated and underappreciated receiver of the last decade or so.
He's a tremendous fantasy. He's in our fantasy Hall of Fame there. I mean, the guy has just been great for years and years and years. And, he's a possession receiver, too. And for him to score as much as he does is remarkable.
The third and long play that he made on the Joe Flacco heave downfield where he was completely blanketed and still made the catch. It was just, I think that was the biggest play of the game for the Ravens, even though it came in the first half. All right, let's get things moving. I want to talk to you about you. Let's give me some broad strokes about your career and how you came to be at the New York Times. And I wish we could get into details, but let's go with the abridged version.
The abridged version was I needed a job coming out of college, like everybody does. I was an English major. I had no skills. I went to the Dallas Morning News, talked my way in to be a cop reporter overnight for $6 an hour and no benefits. And I was right. I liked to read and write. And I found a home in this. And I was a news guy until the Atlanta Olympics. I had written a book in '89 about the Charlotte Hornets, the then Charlotte Hornets' first season in the NBA. They recognized that I was a news guy who liked sports, and so I crossed over. And the '96 job, I mean, it was in Atlanta, but I went to South Africa for months at a time. I went to Russia, and, you know, it was falling at that point, and did how this Sylvia Power is going to rebuild itself in light of perestroika. You know, I got to see the wall fall and all this stuff. And that kind of got my notice in New York. And in 1998, they called and said, would you move to New York? And I was like, yes. And would you cover college sports? Yes. And that's how I started. Now, the horse racing came because our horse racing guy was getting ready to retire, and it's a steep learning curve. And I bet races ever since I was 6 and 7 years old. I came at it strictly as like a fantasy player. And I knew a little bit about it. I had owned horses. And it just kind of took a life of its own there.
I do feel that the horse racing world is something that you don't just break into. It's something that you're raised with. I've talked to Kenny Mayne before. I interviewed him,
Right.
And his was he went to the racetrack outside of Seattle, like growing up with, and it's just something you're raised to appreciate, and you can't just, no one just picks up a horse racing game.
And it's a common language that you have to learn, a vocabulary. And what Kenny will tell you, and I'll tell you, the beauty of it is, if you just get up in the morning, everybody will talk to you. Everybody trains and talks from 6 to 9 in the morning. You know, you guys know it. If you go into an NBA locker room, if you go into an NFL locker room, you may get 15 minutes, and they're hiding in the training room most of the time. So the access in horse racing is tremendous. Everybody wants to talk to you. It's the one place where I'll be in the track kitchen and see the late George Steinbrenner next to a $200 a week groom from Mexico City, next to Donald Trump. I mean, it's very democratic. So that has been fun, and it's been kind of neat to shine the flashlight on there. And there's, you know, we did this series this past year on the abuses and the drugs used, and, you know, how races sometimes aren't on the up and up because they're running hurt horses. So, you know, it's been a good ride.
All right. Let's talk about Soldiers First, your most recent book. You embedded with the football team at West Point, and it was the 2011 season?
2011. What had happened there, Matt, is, and I had a bestseller before this. I moved to this small town in Kansas where they set the record and won 86 games in a row over 5 years. And they did it with a coach who never raised his voice, who never talked about winning or losing. And it was a town in 1900, and they always played bigger teams. And I had taken my 3-year-old down there with me and my wife. So I thought that was a once-in-a-lifetime, that's it. One night, Jack, my son, and I, when he's 5, are sitting there watching Notre Dame play Army at Yankee Stadium on the TV. And the pregame, he just goes crazy. You know, you got the parachuting in, you got the cadets marching in, and he goes, "Dad, let's go see the good guys." And that really resonated with me. It was like, I've covered enough college football scandals. I had to do the Sandusky trial. I went to SMU where at the time where you saw
what the penalty.
Yeah, you saw what the best football money could buy looked like. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of struck me that I thought, you know, he's right. He's at that age where the little green army men are his heroes, and he plays with them all the time. And I thought, you know, this could be something. And I didn't know anything about the military academies or the military for that. And I knew they played pretty good football in the 40s and 50s, but that was it. So that's what sent me up there.
And what did you find? How was the experience for you?
You know, yeah, and I know you're a former Marine officer. It was a tremendous experience. And it truly is America's best and brightest, the men and women up there. And what they are asked to do in the course of a day, football's the easiest thing they do, by far. I mean, what they're taking 21 hours of an Ivy League education. You know, they're up at 5:30 for formation. They're learning how to jump out of planes, shoot, cramming their head with military things. They're learning the chain of command, which, you know, you've mentioned, which is a tough thing to do.
Yep.
And it really, we're kind of lucky we have this thing out there. And, you know, they refer to it as national treasure. And George Washington basically said we needed a military academy because during the Revolutionary War, we weren't very good engineers and we weren't very good soldiers. And so we needed a professional fighting class. And, you know, it goes straight back to our founders.
Yeah, it's nice that we've got one up north representing the Union, because everything else, VMI, the Citadel, is all based in the South. Which, by the way, if you think that people who go to a military academy are crazy, the people who pay to get hazed at VMI and Citadel are of another class of human being entirely. I do not understand that.
Well, and I'll tell you, you know, you go and you think, okay, these guys are cadets, they're future officers, but they're not cultural eunuchs. I mean, they're 19 to 22 kids. Trent Steelman was their quarterback, and he'd always
great
be
name.
Yeah,
one of the great names in college football.
And he'd be jamming to his earbuds, whatever you call them. Mm-hmm. And I finally went up and asked him, and he's a kid from Kentucky, a raw-boned, white Kentucky kid. And I was like, who you listen to? And he's like, Wiz Khalifa. You're like, oh, wow, okay.
Trent Steelman listens to Wiz Khalifa.
Yeah.
That's great. Did you ever make fun of their the silly gray capes? Because, man, that's the one thing that keeps me rooting for Navy every year is those capes. I'm like, man, we gotta move you guys. I understand tradition, but let's get rid of the capes. The half capes. It's their capelets.
Well, see, my son watches a lot of Clone Wars, and they do kind of look like some of the senators there in Star Wars, the Clone Wars. But, you know, it's the long gray line. It's fashion.
It's true. It's true. Let's talk about the 2011 season. Much like all the other recent Army seasons, they end up losing the big game to Navy. Why is this? Why?
You know...
Can you explain that other than Navy has future Marine officers playing for their team?
Well, Ed, I can explain in a few ways. First of all, at West Point, 91 former cadets have died in the last 10 years in the war against terror. That's a powerful tool to recruit against.
Yeah, it's hard to recruit when you're going into a job that kills you.
Yes, and you know, and nothing. And I know Marines go, and I know Air Force guys go, and you know, I don't diminish their service or what they do, but you know, I've had parents say when Navy came here, they said, okay, they're not going to be boots on the ground, they're not going to be tip of the spears, you know. They're going to have a chance to learn other things and do other things. And
it's true. Being the watch officer on a surface ship in the Gulf is a much safer place to be than in Ramadi or Baghdad.
And then there hadn't been the commitment to play that kind of football as there has been in Navy and Air Force. I mean, the administration, they have to get behind you. They have to say, we do want to play big time football, and to do that, we're going to do a few things differently, and they've been unwilling to do that. I mean, they don't let guys out of class. Navy, you can go to summer school and loosen your load a little bit during football season because you know, they have to go in the summer and learn their military duties.
Yeah, the Naval Academy is softer, is what you're saying.
You know, and again, I always get in trouble when I start talking about this, and they aren't softer, and they're great soldiers, and they do great things, but they have an administration that wants to win games.
Moving on, you were, and this is pulled from your bio, the 2010 Sports Ethics Fellow by the Institute for International Sport at the University of Rhode Island. That's I had to read that because that's too much to memorize. What's your take on the state of journalism today, and especially in the wake of the Manti Te'o story and Deadspin breaking it? Give me a state of the journalism in America.
You know, journalism's thriving, but it's just coming from different places. What you guys do is journalism. What Deadspin does is journalism. You know,
that's kind, but I wouldn't accuse us of journalism just yet.
Well, but you know, what is journalism? Journalism is inform and entertain. And you know, I think you'd sit here and think you inform and entertain. And you know, I want everybody to succeed because, you know, what we do is important and what we do is valuable to the public. The public should know some of these things. Are mistakes made? Yeah. Have I made mistakes? Absolutely. But, you know, you hope that you far outweigh the good you do with the mistakes there. And, you know, Deadspin did a great job with that story and caught a lot of people with their pants down, and it's embarrassing, but the story got out.
How secure is it at the New York Times? I feel like the New York Times is doing a better job than most print newspapers in terms of moving online and getting eyes there. I, for one, happen to have the New York Times crossword puzzle app on my iPhone, which is my favorite app on Mondays and Tuesdays, and less so the rest of the week. But what kind of growing pains have you seen amongst your colleagues?
You know, I mean, we're doing better than most, and there was an emphasis sooner to go straight to the web. I mean, when I started in this business, you typed it up, you sent it in at the end of the day, and you saw it the next morning. Now, if I got a story, I file now. It's up on the web. So, you know, we had to pick up the metabolism on there. We're asked to do more. We were talking beforehand. We have a full video unit. We have talented video journalists on there. I know how to do podcasts. I know how to do sound.
You're doing well so far.
And these are all things I tweet, I Facebook. I mean, you know, I moved the product out there. So, you know, a lot of old dogs had to learn new tricks, but we did. And, you know, I'd like to think we were going to survive, but we've had our tough times. We've had layoffs and buyouts. And, you know, again, you just got to believe that what we do, and I use the universal we, is valuable, and that people want to read it. And, you know, we do get a ton of traffic. We're the most traveled news site. And we're one of the few places that, in fact, we're probably the only place that still has a bureau in Iraq, Afghanistan, you know, 19 foreign bureaus. And that's how we inform and entertain. We go places that others won't.
And others can't also. Yeah. So you are still, you know, for all the talks of the cutbacks here and there, that you still have a little bit of bankroll behind you. Which is,
you know, for now. For now.
It's funny that you started working at $6 an hour and no benefits, because that's how most bloggers start.
Well, and you know, that is the way it's done. I mean, everybody did it that way. There's not a guy of my generation who can tell you that they walked into a 30,000, 18,000. I mean, it was always a give and take. It was like, and you know, when kids come to me and say, how do I get in this? I'm like, work for your weekly for $15.
Yeah.
Write a free story here and there. I mean, as you know, our currency is clips. It's what your work. Nobody's ever asked me what my grades were. And,
oh, no.
And, you know.
And good thing, too.
Absolutely. I mean, college was the best 7 years of my life. And I only got a BA out of it. So, you know, that is how it does. So things really haven't changed that much.
No, I don't think so. And yeah, it's I think my first online writing job was something in the neighborhood of $8 a post for AOL, and it's taken, you know, 8 years to get to the pinnacle of online streaming podcasts on SBNation.com. So
high above the Javits Center.
Welcome, sir. All right, let's go on to our segment called the Troll Bag. These are questions from readers and friends of mine on Twitter. And by friends, I mean I've never met them before in my entire life.
Oh, you make them ask the questions. You wrote these questions.
I did not. This one's a real question from someone named Matt Flick. Of the teams with new head coaches, who will improve the most? We've obviously already talked about Chip Kelly. I would think that Andy Reid, of course, is a new coach in Kansas City. Who do you think is primed for a big step up and the 8 new coaches in the NFL?
You know, and Andy Reid and Chip Kelly are not among them right there. I mean, Andy Reid, and this hurts me to say this, but he has the look of like the old NBA when Hubie Brown would be recycled through there. You know, he's like just one of those perennial names. And, you know, he's got a lot to do, and the Chiefs got a lot to do. I'm rooting for him, but I don't think he's going to turn him into a 10-4 team there. And I think Chip Kelly, you know, he could go the way of Nick Saban. I mean, that is a huge leap to go from where you are to there and try to implement your way. I mean, it's a different kind of animal in there. So I like the younger guys that are coordinators and that are moving up. I think those are the guys who are going to pop.
I think Gus Bradley in Jacksonville is, and this may very well be my Seahawks homerism coming out because he did such great work in Seattle. But I think that he could take, especially in the AFC South, which is a pretty weak division, they could take a step up. I don't love Rob Chudzinski in Cleveland. I think that was a pretty uninspiring hire. All right, our next question was from Michael Reinhardt. What do horses do in the off season?
They do what I'd like to do. They get turned out to pasture, and they run
stud?
around. They honestly they go to stud when their career is over.
Oh, okay.
Right there.
Yeah, right.
And stud is a wonderful career. It's 250 times a year for up to 125,000 a pop.
Oh,
and that's very lucrative there.
It's nice work if you can get it.
But no, they rest. They go out to the pasture and be horses instead of race horses.
Did you the Super Bowl Budweiser commercial, the Clydesdale? Did you cry?
Absolutely.
Oh, me too.
Absolutely. And
Waterworks.
I cried at the Jeep one about the Army one too.
Oh, that was a good one too.
Yeah.
I didn't cry to that because I have very little humanity. However, the Clydesdale got, and I don't even like horses. I do not like horses, and the Clydesdale got me.
No, and I'm one of those guys. My now 7-year-old will elbow me. We were watching Here Comes the Boom the other night, and I got a little teary-eyed. I mean, I do just kind of get very sentimental about things.
Let me ask you a question about. There's a lot of talk of football coaches. Would you let your son play football? Would you let your son go into journalism?
Wow, I thought you were going to do the football question.
Oh no, I mix it up.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want my son to be happy. I want him to do whatever he wants to do. And if that's journalism, great. I'd prefer Wall Street, but, I'd take journalism. And, yeah, I would. I mean, I think we make an honest living.
Yeah, it is. I feel pretty good about it. It's fun.
And when I go talk it doesn't matter if I'm at the Columbia J School or his second grade class. I tell them the same 3 things why I got into this business and why it's great. Is first of all, I never have to go to the office. Second of all, I don't have to wear a tie. And
Nice.
Third of all, every day is different for me. And all it means is I go out and talk to people and listen to them, and then I come back and write it up and I tell a story. I inform and entertain. So my days are never the same. So
that is nice, and that's one step up from being a blogger where you're on the couch and not talking to people. Let's close the show with Fumbler. We do something a little more fun and webby to close the show. And this week I'm all about the Westminster Dog Show. I love dogs. Last night, Swagger, the Old English sheepdog, made a surprise win in the herding group. We'll see him tonight on in the Best of Show on USA if you're so inclined to watch dogs. What's your take? Now, I know the New York Times covers the Kennel Club Dog Show in a big way.
It's like a political convention at our place. I mean, honestly, people get way into it. I just came from the office, and nobody was there because they were all over the dog show.
That's so weird.
It is, but it's one of those things, animals, dogs and horses. Horse racing has a tremendous following with our readers, too, and it's mainly the animal aspect of it. They're beautiful, they're majestic, there's something sort of preternational about them. Now, my take on the dog show is my mutt breed is not allowed in the dog show.
No, I've got a Rottweiler mix again, and she's the best in home. I love her.
The best in home, and again, it was something you do for your kids. It was nothing that was in my. I did not think I was going to be walking on First Avenue with a little cocker mix named Sweetie, picking up.
Not the most masculine of dogs.
With my bag.
Okay,
But everybody does what they have to do.
So it was you're not so much a dog lover as a thing you did for your son.
No, I love the dog.
Yeah.
And, I grew up with dogs, but it's, I honestly didn't think I'd live in New York City with a dog. Did you?
I've always, I never thought I'd live in New York City was something that I never considered growing up. But I've always had dogs, and I had cats growing up, but it turns out I'm allergic to them. So.
Uh-huh.
I've always loved dogs, and I just I saw mine on the street. She was they were having the Adopt Me vests. They've got the mobile adoption center, and I just saw her, and she just looked at me, and it was just love at first sight. And I was like, wait, I work from home. I don't do anything all day. I want a dog, and I was just like, all right, you're my new dog now, and that's how it goes. However, the Westminster Kennel Club. People are strange. On one hand, I love them because I think I love watching dogs. I like the different breeds, but at the same time, the eugenics side of things, where it's like there's a breed standard, and this dog is better than that dog because it is more the ideal dog, and that's just it's off-putting to me. There's dogs that are homeless in your local shelter, and that those dogs need homes. We don't need to breed new ones.
I'm 100% agreement.
All
with
right,
you.
and that's the end of dog talk on Uffsides. Joe, I'd like to thank you for being here today. It's going to be a long slog through the NFL offseason, and we have to entertain ourselves any way that we can, such as picking up a copy of Soldiers First and reading about the West Point football team, also known as Army. It's been a real pleasure having you on the show. Thanks for coming and talking about the NFL coaching carousel, the Kansas City Chiefs, and getting us through another week of the NFL offseason. Real pleasure.
And no pitchers and catchers.
No pitchers and catchers. Pitchers and catchers have been canceled. There is no spring training this year.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
All right. We'll see you next week for another episode of Offsides, getting through the NFL offseason. Bye-bye.